What is up? It is your friend, your homie here, Damian Howard, another segment of Village Talks. I'm super excited, y'all, I'm always excited, but uniquely today because Scott, who you all are going to meet in a moment, is a man that I've really come to cherish his work, particularly Leap Innovations, which he is the CEO of. They're doing some fascinating work, really helping ed tech folk like me, folks within the school system from districts and or individual schools to really understand how we can be wise as we are thinking about how do we embrace AI in a way that is going to be helpful for young people. So you all know when you come to Village Talks, it's all about inspiration and education that's going to help us to be better positioned in service to young people. And I believe that when Scott jumps in here, gives his introduction, and we have a conversation, there are going to be some nuggets that are shared here today that is encouraging and empowering for our village. Scott, jump in there.
Awesome. Damien, thank you so much for having me and congrats to you and everything that you built and everything that you're leading across the country. It's really inspiring and I appreciate being part of the conversation. Scott Frauenheim, proud CEO of Leap Innovations, really excited to join the conversation, bringing some perspective on innovation and education across the country. I am a longtime educator, about 20 years of education. I moved to Chicago about 20 years ago for my first teaching job. I grew up in central New Jersey, and I'm a son of an educator, an assistant principal, an athletic director, a head football coach back when they let you have all those jobs at the same time, and got to see the power of community in my hometown in the ways that my dad really led as an educator. I ran from education in my post-secondary because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. And I ended up graduating and realizing that education was in my DNA. So I moved to Chicago, my first teaching job on the north side of Chicago, taught for 20 years in the same organization, Distinctive Schools, as a teacher and then a dean of students and then a school principal at CICS West Belden, where we transformed a lot of learning around personalized learning and really reimagined what the school should and could look like in really innovative ways. And then went on to lead at the systems level for Distinctive as the CEO for about 6 years. And then 2 years ago, we acquired leadership of Leap Innovations from Phyllis Lockett, who was the founder. For the past 2 years, we've been working with schools and districts, as you mentioned, really helping them to think about innovation, school transformation in adaptive and human-centered ways, and then working with great ed tech and ed innovators like yourself and many others across Chicago and the country to really make sure that we're integrating technology and resources and tools into schools in really responsible and co-designed ways. So happy to be here and grateful for the opportunity to share about my origin story.
Man, I appreciate that, Scott. When you think of innovation, particularly innovation that is impactful for young people, in the K-12, and I know that you all are also doing some work in partnership with colleges as well, but particularly, again, my interest here is developing the concept of within K-12 educate, excuse me, K-12 education and thinking of the concept of innovation. How do you all define that? And or when you all are thinking of how you can support schools to help them to be more innovative, be it cutting edge or impactful in their work, how do you all talk about innovation?
Yeah, so we're really focused at Leap around being human-centered in everything that we talk about. So we talk about, technology and arrival technology like artificial intelligence or other ed tech solutions, really needing pedagogy. And so the ways that we co-design with educators and elevate student voices is really important to us. We believe that we should be designing with the students in mind, and elevating youth voices has been really powerful as we work with education technology resources and partners to really bring them into the co-design space so that tools are being created for what students need and what they're identified as solutions in their own work and in their own classrooms. And so working with educators in school districts and schools, we are co-designing to help them identify opportunities of practice. They may say it is social emotional learning, they may say it's literacy, and they may say it's math. And then we work with them to really identify strong educational technology partners to come into the conversation through match conversations, so that they are solving their opportunity of practice and not feeling like something is being done to them, but being done with them. And so that's been really powerful, and innovation defined for us as solutions to help students achieve excellence in really holistic ways. So we've got some partners that are not technology resources that are matching with schools, that are more mentoring or tutoring partnerships. And then we have partners like you and others that have really strong technology solutions that are helping schools and districts to solve those problems. And so co-design, human-centered, adaptive change happens in partnership with us, and then bringing folks to the table again. I think pre-pandemic, we saw so much of this happening where people were just craving being in a room together and really reimagining what solutions could look like. And so the past couple of years, we've just seen this accountability pressure on literacy and math proficiency, which we know is super important, but we know a student's experience needs to be more holistic. And so we've been proud of getting people back in rooms again for the past 2 years, getting people designing on walls again, and finding solutions based on what students and educators are telling us they really need in the moment.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that, and that's very, very helpful. And I actually got to experience firsthand what it looks like to emphasize student voice at the last AI and tech convening that you all had. You all had a panel with about four high school students from right here from Chicago, and they were really speaking to what AI in education means for them, what solutions they're looking for. One of the things that really stood out to me that I just hadn't imagined is how much trust they have in us as educators to kind of help them to navigate things like utilizing artificial intelligence, what tools they should be using. So yeah, I literally firsthand was able to experience what it means when you all say that student voice is at the center and the priority for all of the innovation that you all hope to see to hit the market. So I was thinking of, as you were sharing earlier, of a little bit of the history and context concerning who you are. It really seems like that concept of village, what we're all about here in this podcast space, resonates with you. I would love for you to speak a little bit more to that, either within the context of what you're doing now with Leap or generally. How does that concept of village resonate with you, Scott?
Yeah, thanks. I love the concept. And I think, we as educators know that it takes a village, and we need to be really mindful of what that feels like. It resonates with me really specifically because no single person or institution can do this work alone. I think we've seen that as we've led in education for the past many years. We sometimes put all the pressure on schools and teachers to just figure it all out, in my opinion. And the reality is, we all know it takes families, it takes community partners, it takes nonprofits, it takes organizations, it takes really strong resources from the ed tech community to really bring everything together for a school or student's experience. And so, how might we all work together to really support a young person better, in my opinion, needs to be done. And so what I've seen over time is that, when the village is aligned and everyone's pulling in the same directions, we're, really able to help students succeed and thrive. But coordinating those efforts is really hard to do. We're finding ed tech partners and resources partners really finding it hard to be invited into communities or being invited into schools or to find the opportunities where folks need them. Separately, schools and districts we know are dealing with funding changes and realities around accountability pressures. And so there's this kind of barricade or this barrier that's built between those resources. And so how might we all row together in that village concept is a big focus of us at Leap. I mentioned my childhood, but really growing up in community, we lived on the school's campus for my entire childhood. And so I got to see, you know, Friday night football like traditions and community coming together to help one another and community showing up for the schools, and that really inspired me to go into education. And so part of my work here at Leap has really been focused on how do we recreate some of those synergies where community and resources and schools and teachers are coming together to be the village, because teachers and students are I'm sorry teachers and educators are reporting we can't do this alone. We need more resources, need more partnerships, but it's a heavy lift to ask them on top of everything else to go source them. And so, the ways that we can coordinate better can help the village be more realistic and more visionary.
Scott, for the first time, as you were talking, the convening, particularly that you all are doing around AI in education, and if there is a different way that you all speak of it, I would love for you to correct that and bring that to bear as you speak. But that work seems like you all are embracing the fact that coordination of synergies is extremely hard. And you all are saying versus shy away from how hard that is, we have a willingness to step in and be a part of the solution. And if nothing else, to create space for all of these different personas that are important as it pertains to bringing innovation to the practice of education. Yeah, that's just an observation that was illuminated in my mind. I would love for you to speak more to that. What space does Leap hold and or occupy when it comes to that coordination, which you and I know is nearly impossible oftentimes?
Yeah, yeah. So part of our goal, and this has been a little bit of our passion project, has been just facilitation and convening of really awesome people across, specifically here in this example, the AI Coalition for Human-Centered Design. We saw lots of folks focusing on lots of different things across the AI spectrum, specifically in the city of Chicago, and we're scaling that AI coalition to other regions to help bring the same partnerships together. But we saw early childhood going down a path. We saw higher ed going down a path. We saw ed tech partners going down a path. We saw our K-12 partners going down a path in the schools and districts that we work with. And so we said, why don't we get everybody in the room and figure out what everybody's doing? I think it was at the early stages of AI emerging into our world. And so being able to identify best practices, sharing resources, sharing ideas, spotlighting different folks that are doing really cool stuff that can be applicable across partnerships or pathways. And so we started about 16 months ago with, hey, would everyone be interested in getting in a room? It's been really powerful. We've grown to over 100 organizations that have entered the rooms that we've hosted over the past 16 months. And we're excited to keep it going and growing it. Um, Powerful to hear like K-12 be like, oh my gosh, having a funder sit next to me in this AI coalition was so powerful to hear some of their roadmap for what they might be thinking about for funding. And ed tech partners saying to us, like, thank you for bringing student voice to this experience. I needed to hear it today as we're continuing to evolve our product. And so it's been powerful. And I think it's a good opportunity for good sharing and practice that doesn't always happen. We used AI as the collaboration point, but I think it can happen across multiple topics and subjects as we keep it going.
Scott, as you lead Leap, help us really come into your world as far as through shared story. What is an example of impact that really jumps out to you when you think of ways, maybe, or a specific way that you all have shown up to bring innovation to a space and you've seen impact come from that within these, particularly within these last couple of years as you were leading? Talk to us, share some. I'm looking for some story time here, Scott.
Okay. Excited to do that. Yeah. So we're working with a ton of really awesome schools and districts across the country right now. And we are doing, various opportunities of innovation support. So consulting and technical assistance support. We've got folks designing, portrait of a learner in some districts. We've got districts determining how they might use student voice more actively in student teacher relationships. And so various different innovative ways that schools are thinking about the future of learning, specifically on the artificial intelligence front, which is getting me most fired up right now. Partnering with schools and districts to really think about what their entry points are to AI, especially those districts that are not turning it off and banning it, but really elevating voices to determine what they should do with AI. So Leap's partnered with some districts here in the Chicagoland area that are elevating student voice by doing learner advisories. And so multiple rounds of learner advisories to say, hey, students, what do you think we should do with AI? How should it show up in our work? When do you think we should use it and not use it? What tools do you think we should be using? And really building kind of this expanded design team of students first, coupling that with educator voices. What do you all need from this? How do we support you better? How do we make sure that we are lifting the AI work in the right ways? And then going even to stakeholders, so boards, parent, community members, other stakeholders around schools and districts. And that power of voice has been really powerful in helping schools and districts design their own guidebooks and playbooks for how they're going to embrace AI in their schools and districts. For those that started with us about 16 months ago on that journey, we are now seeing them ready for really enhanced AI implementation along tools and solutions in their schools and districts. So we're helping them really think about effective teaching and learning design now using AI. We're building standards-based reporting tools and apps now. We've got content teachers really thinking about how they're building scopes and sequences and new pacing guides using AI. And so it's been fun to see this journey and evolution. And there's no judgment if the school district's just ready to jump in and do their guidebooks right now. That's okay. But schools that have been on this journey for the past 16 or 24 months that have really been front runners have been really inspiring me in the ways that they're moving towards teaching and learning integration as AI not being this separate thing or this scary thing, but being used safely and responsibly in their everyday use.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Uniquely, as somebody who is trying to sell into school districts, to hear that one of the ways that Leap Innovations is showing up is to really help these districts to understand, like, hey, everybody doesn't just have to run from this. There are ways that literally this tool can be leveraged. And you said something earlier, I think, to enhance personalization of learning in ways that we've always known we've needed to do, but just haven't had the tools and might I add the capacity, right, to
Thousand
bring
percent.
about personalized education in a way that we know every student deserves. So just super excited and tip my hat to how you all are showing up as leaders in that way. And also excited to hear that you're saying, hey, we're not going to limit the brilliance of this convening space to just Chicago. And you
Yep.
all are going to other regions to spread that awesome work. Scott, human-centered design. Um, I'm gonna admit to you that when it just felt like there was an explosion of design work and design thinking and bringing folks together so that we could have prolonged and deep conversations. Like you said, go to the whiteboards and or get the big old post-it notes and like let's write the stuff out. Let's ask the question why 100 times to really get to the core of what we're trying to get to, man. Like I'm gonna admit to you very frankly, I was like, man, like this process is extremely draining. And I think a part of my mentality was, is this really necessary? And I think to call it out, that's part of the bias. That's part of the thing that we're actually trying to solve against by creating those spaces to allow different voices to be heard. That you might have somebody at the table that feels like they got it all figured out and they will be hasty to implement certain strategies. And then it turns out, hey, since we didn't take the time to hear what the kids had to say about this, they're not showing up to this after school program because it wasn't built for them. It wasn't built with them in mind. So I just really want you to help us to understand that design thinking and modeling around keeping the human at the center. Where does that come from? And how does Leap Innovations uniquely leverage human-centered design work with the work that you all do?
Yeah, so great question. And obviously, there's been lots of iteration of human-centered design and adaptive change over the years. I think from a focus on the work that we're doing, human-centered design, really taking problem-solving approaches. I like to say opportunity-solving approaches. So we're using asset-based language instead of deficit-based language. And so as we look at opportunity-solving approaches, how are we prioritizing human needs? How are we looking at behaviors of our people that we're going to be working with? How are we experiencing every stage of development that's going to be needed for what we're implementing or what we're looking to solve for? And taking folks through the design process is fatiguing. I'll just name it. It's a fatiguing process. And when not done well, we are pushing solutions or resources or tools into educators and student hands without any engagement on the why. And so at Leap Innovations, we believe that the why is the most important thing that we can solve for as we're bringing people together. And if people are leaving at least with the why and can ground themselves in the why, we're seeing so much more responsiveness to want to implement solutions with a strategy and with excitement and with the buy-in that we know is going to be exceeded for necessary for fidelity of implementation and for really strong implementation using empathy driven approaches, using iteration, some of the core components of human centered design, we're seeing faster, rapid prototyping and piloting so that we're getting the buy in faster. And so while it's fatiguing design time, we're seeing actually the implementation of resources and tools going much faster when the human centered design process plays out using empathy interviews, defining our how might we statement, agreeing on with our fist to five protocol that we all agree on the why for what we might be going to do or solve for, that opportunity just comes to life faster. And so that's been helpful, recognizing that not everybody's ready for the change and not everybody's bought into the momentum, but at least if they know the why, regardless of their appetite for the change, the why is at least influencing things faster from what we're seeing with our partners.
I am going to remix my magic wand question that I ask every single segment. Scott, and I should know this about you, but I don't feel like I asked on the front end if you have children. Um, it looks like yes. Okay. So yeah, when you jump back in, Scott, let us know the ages of your children and versus asking you to take this magic wand and do what it is that you want with the magic wand to impact change. I want to make it very personal to you right now because I know that a lot of the stuff that we talked about, you think about very deeply. Specifically, what type of innovation is really going to drive change at scale, right? That's going to bring, might I add, and I haven't heard you say this, so I'm just going to say it based on how I'm hearing you and based on what's inside of me, what's going to bring reform even to the education system, not in a way where it's just trying to usurp authority or do, but in a way whereas we're leveraging the tools necessary to allow kids to experience quality education in an equitable way, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your familial circumstances, whatever it may be. So, Scott, let's make this very personal for you. You thinking about the ideal scenario between, particularly again, K-12, and if you feel inclined, let's even go post-secondary for your children. What type of education innovation do you hope that they persistently have access to so that ultimately they have, the best access to the lived experience and outcomes that we want for all of our kids?
Yeah. So thank you so much for asking. I have a 4-year-old who's about a year away from kindergarten, and a 1-year-old. She just turned one, and so two beautiful daughters and brilliant daughters that I'm really excited for on their journey of education. Also terrified for their journey of education as an educator and wanting to really be thoughtful in the way that I respond to this question. And so I'll start with my magic wand response and what I hope for them. And what I hope for them is a educational system that is ready to be nimble and responsive to students' needs. And the work that we've done over the last 2 decades around personalized learning still not being systemic change and transformation across the educational ecosystem across our country. And so our schools are still designed in very archaic ways, and systems are moving way too slow. I don't think anyone would disagree with that statement. I know that there's reasons why systems have to go slower, but I really hope for them that the innovative solutions, the innovative partners, the ways that we can transform schools to be more personalized can just go so much faster, and ways that we can use that magic wand to remove barriers so schools can test and learn and scale what's working so much faster. I also want for them to experience education that's relevant and engaging and fun in their learning experience. We know that students across the country, especially students who and communities that have been underserved and historically marginalized, have had very, very disproportionate access to innovative experiences across schools and systems. And so I want that broadly for education in the ways that the entire system has to move faster, but more importantly, how we can create more access faster, specifically with AI and other resources. Look, our kids are they shared it in our last AI coalition. They're experiencing a really, really complex world right now. And they shared with us that, students are navigating schools that don't feel relevant and engaging all the time. And we're seeing post-secondary and beyond post-secondary into career. Every piece of research is telling us that students need to expect something completely and dramatically different in the next 3 decades for what careers will exist, what resources and skills they'll need to be successful in post-secondary. And so we are going too slow and we have to go faster. And that's what I want for education across the country. But most importantly, that's what I want for my two daughters to have the most relevant, engaging, fun learning experience that is holistic and really focused on what they need individually.
And when you say relevant for next year, a 5-year-old, that's hard to even imagine determining what's relevant for them. But I think as I'm listening to your answer, And even in thinking about the Montessori model, which we're not necessarily raising up as the ideal, but it's like get in there, play, experiment, go be a kid. And as you do that, we're going to be observing, we're going to be taking note of certain things, and to your point, doubling down on those things that are really taking your interest. And to your point, the more I think we can do that in the education sector and system, the better off our young people. To your point, talking about every piece of research from my undergrad all the way to now. Personalized education and personalized learning
Yep.
has already
Yep.
been so well researched and known to be effective for kids. So
Yep.
I echo your sentiment for my 15-year-old daughter as well, Scott.
Nice. Nice. And yeah, I'll just add one thing.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about your 15-year-old. And, in our LEAP learning work, our personalized learning framework has been, a bedrock of our work for the past decade plus. And so the first component of that is really understanding a learner all the way down to early childhood. We talk to educators all the time around how do you identify the strengths of a 5-year-old, the interests of a 5-year-old. By the way, they have them, and you should ask about them, and you should get them, to tell you what excites them in the moment. It might be different from when they're 5 to when they're 15. Things will change, but in that moment, how are you responding to the personalized needs of that student? And so my 5-year-old loves right now um, lots of different TV shows and lots of different activities and gymnastics and soccer. And so, like, how might you make your learning more relevant to students' interests and needs? There's just a baseline that we're still not seeing. So I could go on for hours on that, but I think as early childhood, we can be personalizing better and faster.
I got triggered when you talked about gymnastics and soccer. My daughter is at a she's on a travel volleyball team, and based on like how the last couple of years have gone, we decided to take her to a place that's an hour away from our home. And it's just the things we do for these kids, man.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so Scott, I want to offer up an opportunity for you to do a couple of things. Number one, if there was something that we missed, particularly as pertains to what's going on there at Leap Innovations, that you would love for the viewers of this space, the folks who are part of my village and the folks who are part of yours, if there's something that we missed that you want to call out, definitely please do that. And what I also want to make sure that we create space for, Scott, is yeah, folks are going to watch this and maybe they might not be familiar with you and or Leap Innovations, and they might want to get in contact with you. So help folks also to understand where they can find you and engage with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just a couple quick things that I'll just point out is that, while I am critical sometimes of how fast we are not moving, there is some incredible proof points of some awesome innovation happening across schools, districts, and our ed tech partners, you included, of things that we are really inspired by at Leap and seeing really impact education across the country. And so I just want to say kudos to you, but also kudos to all the great innovators doing really great work right now in response to the conversation that we're having today. I think separately, being really thoughtful about how we continue to spotlight good practice everywhere. And so reaching out to each other in the same way you and I have around highlighting and identifying really good practices and opportunities to share across our AI coalition. If folks are interested in joining that, they should absolutely reach out to us in ways that we want to be the facilitator and the convener to really great stuff happening and being shared. I think there's a lot of exciting work on the horizon for us at Leap as we're really leaning into supporting schools and districts, but also nonprofit organizations and other organizations alike that are education facing. We've been welcomed in to help folks really think about how AI is being integrated into their practices as an organization or in their HR practices. And so that's been really exciting and fun. Last thing I'll just share is, you can find us at leapinnovations.org. Got a contact us button. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with more people and find ways to collaborate and partner in any ways that we can. And if you're interested in joining the AI Coalition in Chicago or any other regions, definitely reach out either LinkedIn or our website so that we can get you set up with an invitation to join those. And just again, Damien, appreciate you having me and being part of this conversation. And we'll have lots more to come in the future.
Absolutely. This certainly isn't our last. I'm already looking forward. I believe my calendar invite reminded me that May is the next time we're going to have a convening. So I certainly am planning on being there. So, Scott, this was amazing. I'm super elated with all of the different ways that you're helping us to think about that, like really prioritizing the human, really prioritizing the kids anytime when we want to hastily get out there and think about what innovation looks like. Like take a step back, right? Like take a breath and see what the kids have to say about that. I think really that's one thing that resonated profoundly as I was listening in. And just excited for everybody who was able to watch this segment. I know that either inspiration or education was achieved. And once more, Scott, just very grateful for you. If there's anything else, Scott, that you just want to put out there, just as an encouragement for us who are out here on the front lines trying to be our best and do our best to serve young people, I want to give you the final word.
Thank you so much, Damien. I think relationships are so important in this work, and we need to continue to elevate learner voices, educator voices, and design with and not for. And if we all do that, we will continue to be the village that our schools and our youth and our communities need us to be. And excited for us to continue to come together in really forward-thinking ways so that we can be partners in this work. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So this has been another segment of Village Talks. Thank y'all for joining.